Finding what affects your markets is an arduous task. Through working with and learning from industrial forecasters, supply chain managers, and strategic planners, one thing stuck out: how often correlation analysis is used to find relevant indicators. According to this graph, lawyers in Iowa and Apple iPhone sales shared a 99.19% correlation between 2007 and 2013. And you're right. This is what we recognize as a spurious correlation. And relying on mere correlation takes you further away from what you really need to know. Now, let's dive into the maths and find out why following correlation would not give you results you can trust. Here's simulated data from a simple autoregressive model. If this is quarterly data, we can say that the current quarter is dependent on the previous quarter with a coefficient of 0.9. We've also added some random disturbances. Now, let's calculate correlation coefficients between observations and their lags. We see that the correlation with the first time lag is 0.78, and the correlation with the second time lag stands at 0.58. We see that there is a fairly large correlation between the current quarter and the previous one, but also with 2 quarters back at 0.58. The surprising result is that the second lag shows correlation despite the fact that the data is only generated on the first lag. This is happening because these coefficients are related to partial correlation, not correlation. Firstly, it is a relation between the current period and the second lag given the first lag, and next, once we account for the information between the period and 1 quarter back, there's not much left to capture in the previous period. If you had followed the first correlation results, you would probably have predicted your variable using both lags. Or with law graduate figures, if you were Tim Cook. We showed that this methodology is wrong. Now that's correlation for you and the fallacies it can present. Perhaps you intend to forecast your sales for next year. You're after good indicators. There are so many out there, and it's key you find the right ones. Enter Lasso. Let's take another easy math example. We've generated data, represented by Y, that depends on 2 signal indicators covariates, B1 and B2. These ones are very important, and you would need to find them if you were to forecast Y. However, we added 20 other indicators that are just noise. We simulated data with them having a 0 coefficient. They are not necessary, but in the real world, you would not know this, and you would try to pull out B1 and B2 and leave out the noise. This is basically looking for a needle in a haystack. We also set a high correlation between X1 and X2, so it would be hard to disentangle the effect of the signal indicators. Moving forward, we trained our model with 250 data points and kept 250 for testing, and here are the results. Using this basic correlation measure, we see that correlation remains stable as we add more data. It globally understands this. Firstly, the noise should not be correlated, and the signals are important. It's easy to think this correlation on this plot perfectly found the difference between noise and signal. But if you recall what was presented earlier, the bias associated with this methodology has been proven. The Indicio and Lasso methodology directly suppresses the noise from 25 observations. Its non-influence is automatically detected and set to 0. Our signals stabilize eventually as we add more observations. Therein lies the strength of Indicio's methodology, combining partial correlation for indicator search and using Lasso for noise isolation. So, what is Indicio's impact on forecast performances? This methodology gives results that are much more accurate than a regular regression. Save time and get a forecast you can trust. It takes many observations for the regular least square regression to decreased forecast error. Lasso does this immediately. How? This methodology performing well is attributed to its shrinkage power. The lasso technique rules out useless coefficients to make the model more stable and thus more accurate. At the core of it, this is what Indicio's high forecast accuracy relies on. Correctly identified variables with partial correlation combined with robust models enhanced by Lasso. Rethink how you can move away from depending on correlation to find your leading indicators. Specific to your organization.